Welcome to episode 8 of From the Stands, the Cool Pick Show. Of course, I'm your host, Ryan Colpitz. Thank you for joining us on another week of episodes. Before we begin, I would like to thank our sponsor, Mad Creative and Matthew DeCastro, for their artwork and time that they've been helping us with the show. If you guys need any artwork or design work, please let us know and we will connect you with Matt. Now let's bring Damon in. Oops. Connecting.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Damon?
I'm doing good. And yourself?
Good, man. Just, week 9, another day.
Yes, another day.
Yeah.
Woke up, we're healthy. And once again, you're thankful for your health and your wellness. And you always hope that, the people are safe and healthy in their families, as we deal with, I guess, at some point, the ending of this quarantine. But I'm thankful in the meantime.
Yeah. How is everyone on your end?
No, everybody's good. My family is good in California, and my brothers, my mother and dad are well. No issues there. I did have some cousins that did take on the virus, and one cousin passed away about a week and a half ago. They just had their funeral this past weekend on Saturday.
Oh, man.
I had a cousin who works in the hospitals, and she had it, but she came through it. So it's for the longest, right? No one in your family, or you barely know anyone who have got COVID-19, but then all of a sudden it can come in bunches. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, my condolences to your family.
Yeah.
Cousin for sure. And to your point, hopefully this all ends sooner than later, and we can kind of start to go back to some normalcy in life.
Yes.
That'll take a while to get to, but yeah.
Well, it's amazing. It's the details and the decision making when to, open up the country. And I mean, it takes more than just one person to make that kind of decision.
Sure.
It has to be a strategy. Things are in place, but I think Canada as a whole has done a really good job compared to, other countries that we've seen. And so, kudos to Canada and their quick decision to make the country safe.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Turning to some positive news, though, thank you so much for being on the show today. We're really excited to have you on episode 8 as our guest. So let's just hop right into it.
Let's do it.
The first question I have for you, obviously everyone knows you're big with the CFL, and we'll get into that shortly. Mm-hmm. But you, in the starting part of your career, you actually chose football over baseball. What made you want to ultimately choose football over baseball as a career?
Well, I think since I was 7 years old, I wanted to give myself opportunities. And so the reason why I played baseball and football the same, because those are the two sports that I desired to play and wanted the opportunity to play professionally. And so since I was 7, I was going from one sport to the next throughout my childhood till I got to university. And then when it came true and it gave me the opportunity to play baseball or football, I basically chose the sport, and they both gave me joy, but I chose a sport that allowed me to participate. And so I didn't think about money, because I think it might have been an easier choice if I'd have thought about pure money. And because we know baseball, it's a lot more money than it is in the Canadian football or playing football. And so I think for that, it was strictly on participating. I was a starting quarterback at Cal State Fullerton, and baseball, I was a middle reliever spot starter. And so there are some times, right, when you in a 3-game series at your university, and our university, the year that we won the national championship in College World Series, we played 88 games, so it's almost like a professional schedule. And I was playing football at the same time in my 4 years of university. So being a middle reliever, you may go through a 3-game series and may not pitch at all because of how baseball is now. You got the starter, and usually when a starter gets lit in the first couple of innings, then the middle reliever has a chance to come in and and seal and slow down the runs of the other team. But then now once they added closers to it, there's an inning from 5 to 6 pretty much where middle relievers are pitching now.
Yeah.
And so if you have a really good starter, really good closer, then there are times that the middle reliever won't pitch at all. And so that's basically why I chose it. It was based pure on participation. And I was an everyday player in football.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you kind of get the action and you're not just sitting on the bench watching everything.
No, for me, it's all about participating. Like I said, I want to leave this world. You only have one life to live. I want to participate in the things that I really enjoy. And I actually enjoy both sports, but football, I was an everyday player.
Now, well, it's funny that you say that because you definitely participated a lot right off the hop in college. I actually have to read this because there's so much to this one note. But you led your team to 2 championships, but you also broke the NCAA record when you only threw 3 passes that were intercepted in over 300 attempts. What was that feeling like, just having your name kind of put out there so early in your career and breaking those records going through college ahead of what would be your career in the CFL?
I think it's easy because when you look at the position quarterback, I think there's 3 things that there's a lot of characteristics in being a really good quarterback, but there's 3 that, a quarterback must have. One is toughness. One is accuracy. And another one is, and I don't have them in order, and one is decision making. So you have to have those 3 in order to play really good football. And I know part of decision making and leadership has everything to do with the decision I make on the field, protecting the football and all those things. And so I grew up, looking at some of the great quarterbacks like the Joe Montanas. Who else? The first quarterback I ever seen was Joe Gilliam was the first quarterback I seen. I was a Steeler fan. And so I think from there, you realize, when you deal with a lot of different coaches, they always talk about making good decisions. And so part of making good decisions and being a good leader as a quarterback is actually protecting the football and not giving it away to the other team. And so I think I always had that innate when I played the game and mindset. I always had a feel for the game based on how my defense is playing and how the totality of the game is. And so I always felt that I can play any type of football that you need me to play, whether it's grinding out or a shootout, whatever it may be, the things I have to be able to do to help our football team win. I think that was the one aspect that I wanted to learn. And that's what makes you a really good quarterback in my estimation.
Okay. And what made you want to be like a quarterback besides like a wide receiver or running back? Like you mentioned, you played with your sport, like your time playing baseball and football. Obviously, you have to have a lot of speed in baseball as well, right?
Right.
So what made you want to become a quarterback versus a running back?
Well, I always say that leaders are not born. We hear that notion, leaders are born. But, good leaders, it's like swimming. You got to participate in the you have to get into the water and participate to learn how to swim. And I think leadership is the same way. And so with that notion, I basically tripped over the position. Okay. Because when I first started playing football, I was a defensive back. And this is basically how it went. I was covering the receiver. The ball was overthrown. Maybe because the ball was overthrown because I was covering him so tight. But the ball was overthrown. I ran over there, picked it up, and I threw it back to our coach. And our coach said, we found our quarterback.
Gotcha.
So in that sense, there's one thing I could always do. I could always throw because like in baseball, Little League baseball, I was a pitcher. and a variety of different things. But it was in that notion in football that I decided, that I became a quarterback just on a throwing it back to the coach. And then now I'm diving into that position and learning every aspect of it, and ultimately becoming the player that I am today is due to the experience and diving into and studying the game and watching and learning, as I'm going through to be the best version of myself, the best version of Damon. So,
yeah, I mean, you played 22 years in the CFL. Over that 22-year span, you played for 5 different cities, Toronto, obviously, as well as Edmonton. You played for Ottawa, Hamilton, BC, and even Memphis when they had a team in the league as well. What was your favorite city to play in out of all those cities that you got to spend time in?
My favorite city? I think they're always different because they're all part of my journey, and every aspect of the cities that I played in, I learned something. So, for example, I would say, Edmonton is the city that built the strong foundation for me.
Okay.
And then now, I was being sent off with a stronger foundation. And so, with that, I mean, that's helped me with the foundation, being taught properly how to play the game, how to play the CFL game from an organization that, before I got there, I mean, they're one of the best organizations in the league, and still is today as an organization standpoint. And so when I say I went to Ottawa, and even though Ottawa gave me a total different experience because I went from a really good team into a team that didn't know how to win, but that experience toughened me up and prepared me to actually to play the rest of my career with a different mindset, a different understanding, all those things that you can learn and bring into your arsenal that will make you ultimately a better football player. It's those kind of experiences that I say that every city's different, and every experience is different, and I've learned something in every city, and which is totally different too. And so I think a lot, I don't have to necessarily pick which is the best because in a sense, the best situations are when you win a championship in any of the cities that you want. And so did I think I was going to move around 4 or 5 teams? No, I always thought I was going to be in Edmonton my whole career. The 6 years I was in Edmonton, we went to 3 Grey Cups.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like, man, this is my 2nd year in the league and I'm already going to the Grey Cup. So I'm figuring, man, I'm going to go to many Grey Cups just on this team alone. And so I think in that sense, it changes as, life and decisions are made that sometimes are out of your control. But mainly I do try to control majority of the decisions I made, whether for me to move one team or the other, because in reality, I've really only been traded 1-2 times out of the decisions I made to play on this team and that team.
Well, for what it's worth, I'm glad you got sent to Toronto somehow, or Toronto, because then I was able to see you play a little bit when I was younger, right? So I do remember getting to watch you play a little bit when I made it out to a few.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope I was entertaining.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, what football game isn't entertaining in itself, right? So, So it's funny that you mentioned also to the Grey Cup. So you ended up winning 2 Grey Cups with Edmonton, 1 with BC, and of course 1 with Toronto. What do you have? I know it may be hard to pick one, but do you have one Grey Cup moment that was your favorite amongst the 4?
Once again, I would say like each Grey Cup has its own story.
Yeah.
And the dynamic and the experience that you felt when you're actually playing on a team, because from the beginning to the end, for that team to win a championship, all the things that went on inside of it, right? The challenges, the removing of players or adding players, the struggles you have to go to get to the team where you wanted to be. So I won young in Edmonton. I came back and won in Edmonton. went to BC and I won there. And once I started moving around, I wanted to win a championship in every city that I played on. So I was fairly close.
Yeah.
With doing that. But I would say one of the most enjoyable ones, was the Toronto was one of the most enjoyable because of the dynamic and everything that I went through, from the fractured leg to playing against my old team that I predict prior to the game that we was going to play them, because you couldn't write the script for the ending of, me getting a chance to play, for a team that, I think in a sense, said that my good days were behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really neat to predict that we were going to play the BC Lions before their Western final game.
Yeah.
And we had just won the Eastern final, and the reporter asked me, like, who are you going to play? And I said, you can't write this script. I know we're going to play the BC Lions and what's made it kind of unique too is the 2 times in the regular season I didn't play against the Lions in those 2 regular season games. And so this was the first time they're facing me that season, which is at the Grey Cup game, which at the end of the day, if you know statistics, there's 15 million people will watch the game sparingly, and you'll have about 7 or 8 million will watch it from first quarter. So that's the biggest stage in Canada. And so, yeah. And you always want to perform on the biggest stage because that's what people remember. They don't remember what I did week 10. If I ask you, what did I do in week 10 in my 15th year? You're going to say, I don't know. But
you threw the ball. That's all I know.
Right. You're going to say, I'm pretty sure you played in that game. But if you have a person like what he do in the Grey Cup games, then you'll reel it off those things because that's what fans remember. Now, so I would say the Toronto against the BC Lions, not only I was in my 40s, and from that win, the next year I became MOP of the league, and so sometimes when if I would listen to Wally Bono at the time when he was saying that they're trading me, my good years are behind me, and if I would have believed that, or I might have retired on the year 19, but I decided to go forward because I knew I had more in me, and I believe that I can win another championship, and so that was most rewarding.
And it was definitely redemption, I would say.
Yes.
In my books, that would be.
I use everything to motivate me, so it's not hard to do. So I'm a lot like Jordan in a sense of the mindset when you're being questioned, being doubted. People don't think you can do it. I mean, and the slightest thing I use as motivation to show you that I'm capable of still dominating that in my 40s.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's definitely, there's so many ultimating factors that go into someone's motivation, and what really drives a player to perform to their best capabilities, but also to kind of shut out the haters and prove to them also too, like, I'm here to compete. I'm here to play.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't focus so much on people that much, but I focus on getting myself prepared. And so I use everything to get me prepared to play the game. And because like I said, it's about, your journey, how long you want to play and the impact you want to make on the game and those things. And so those are things I focus on. Ronnie Lott told me one day, he says, Damon, stay on scholarship. And I knew exactly what that meant. Play as long as you possibly can do. And the funny thing, I could have played longer. I could have played a couple more years after I retired. But
well, I'll tell you one thing. I ran into you this past season at BMO Field at an Argos game, and you looked top fit that you could still must move out on the field and get balls thrown down the yard. So, you talked about how you played some kind of softer games. You played some tougher games where you really put in grit and hardness into those games. Is there one game out of all the games that you've played? I know obviously that could be, there's so many games that kind of circle around this question, but is there one that kind of stands out as like the toughest game you've played, or is there an individual that you competed against or faced off against, like quarterback to quarterback, that stood out in your mind as a really tough like component or opponent, sorry, where you're like, okay, if I beat him, this is going to be huge?
Well, in the '90s when Flutie was in Calgary and I was in Edmonton, it was that battle about Alberta, and we would go down to their stadium, they'll beat us, and they'll come to Edmonton and we'll beat them. But I'd probably say my level of competition was really great. I mean, we had great quarterbacks in our league during the time I was playing as well, and so. Not to take nothing away from the quarterbacks we see today, but I'm pretty sure that when I was playing, I played against 6 other Hall of Famer quarterbacks during my time playing in the game. And so the level of competition, game in and game out, is very important. So I think one of my Flutie was always, brought the best because we both felt our A games, when we play our A games, it's tough to beat us. But at the same time, his style of play, how they played offense and how we played offense was different as well, right? They threw the ball a lot more. We were a running, play action, and throwing the football type of team. And so whatever style that was, right? And that's why I say I can play any type of game. I can play a game where 50% is running and the other 50% is passing, or I've been in situations where I won MOP where pretty much was a passing team. And so I think in that sense, my adaptability to be able to play different styles of offenses and at the same time to get into a ball game where it is a grind out kind of ball game, I can play that one as well, because there are times that I had to carry the ball more. I was asked to do both. I was asked to carry the football and throw the football. And so, I always look at myself different than most quarterbacks. I was a two-way player. They were one-dimensional. So,
talking about being that two-way player, also a Hall of Famer type caliber, in 2004, you actually passed Warren Moon's record for the all-time passing leader with the Toronto Argonauts. What was that moment like for you and for those around you, like either in your family or your teammates, to kind of just cement your name in that legacy?
Well, I think, the unique thing that you have different thought process about that, because it's not like, I think in a sense, I snuck up on it. Because, probably my first 10 years, everyone thought I was just a running quarterback, right? And so all of a sudden, until you break the record and you go, oh, shit, the guy can throw the football too. And so I think in that sense, for me, I always knew my capabilities. But it might have been only one time I've ever looked at the record books, and that was like the early in my career. After we won the Grey Cup in 87 or 86, I remember we were on the field, and it was me, Matt Dunnigan, and Tracy Ham. And we're actually looking at the record books, and we seen, Ronnie Lancaster at 19 years. So at that point, we couldn't fathom 19 seasons. And then at the same time, we couldn't fathom like 50,000 yards. That's how many yards he threw for. And so in that sense, that was pretty much the only time I actually really looked at the record books, until you get to the point where in year 16, I broke Ronnie Lancaster's record, which he held for 22 years.
Oh, wow.
He held it for 22 seasons, his 50,000 yards. And I broke it year 16. And then eventually I put it to 72,000, and I didn't hold mine for 3 years. So it let me know also the evolution of the passing game and how much we're throwing the football now than before. And so it gives me the understanding like how great Lancaster was and how the era has continued to evolve and the game has continued to evolve. And so that allows me to appreciate every skill set and every quarterback there that had an imprint on our game. But yes, I'm pretty sure it surprised a lot of people because of their thought process behind me. I'm a running quarterback. So,
come on, you can't tell me though you weren't sitting back in the day and all right, let's see what records I can break while I'm out of career.
no, I wasn't. I was just really just playing the game.
No, it's good to know because like a lot of people, I know like I play baseball and basketball just obviously with men's leagues, but I look at each year like we have like our home run leaders, and then I always check that just to see, okay, how many home runs do I need to go and try and beat, right? Because it adds a fun component to it, but obviously when you're playing in a more professionalized sports
Right.
league, there's more important things to worry about than trying to break someone's
Well, because I'm
record
only
right
focused really on like winning and trying to win a championship or the different teams I'm playing. You know, those things come when you start to get the notice that Damon's close, and then you're aware of it. But so, you know, there was a time that, you know, the league will mention, somebody would mention, oh yeah, dude, you're 200 yards away from the 70 mark and those things. And then now you start to become a prevalent to, you know, what's going on, you know, week in and week out to break the record. I mean, I remember the game that when I did break the record, there was a bet on the sidelines talking about who's betting, each receiver betting each other, saying who's going to get the catch to break the record. Because I only needed 5 yards. They only needed 5 yards and a catch. So they're all betting, like, who's going to get the catch? And then the play that I broke the record on was a broken play, me expanding the time and breaking outside attainment. And I throw a bomb down the field, which they say was significant to what and how I played the game. And so I needed 5, but I ended up throwing a 50-something yard touchdown off of a buying time, breaking containment, and those kind of things. And so it's cool when you look at it that way. But yeah, I mean, when you believe that you're skillful and you play with great intelligence and you believe in your skills, you know, for me, it's like if I play more games than you do, and the record should fall. It's automatic. So
now a lot of people in just like if you're at Argo games or at BMO games and someone sees you and recognizes you, they might come up and ask you for a picture. And there's a lot of people that look up to you from your time in the CFL, time with Toronto, and how you helped to win a Grey Cup as well. Has there been someone in your life that you look up to personally that helps to motivate you each day, whether it was in your career or even now?
Well, the person I watch from his university to his professional was Warren Moon.
Okay.
And I had conversations with him. And so, you know, when I found out he didn't get drafted in the NFL, but he's playing in the Canadian Football League. So I was paying attention to his career. And you know, during my college career, you know, you hear that, oh, he's the Edmonton. There was a time, which is kind of funny. There was a time when the NFL had a strike year in 1982. That was my brother's strike year. And he was on his way. He won Rookie of the Year, but he was on his way because I think he had like 14 touchdowns in eight games, and he still won Rookie of the Year, and they had their strike. But then they started showing Edmonton Eskimo games. At this time, I didn't know the Eskimos had my rights. Supposedly, they had my rights since I was a sophomore at university at Cal State Fullerton. My coach didn't tell me that I was the property of the Eskimos until my senior year. So I followed Warren Moon, watched his career, understand the things that he went through. I was born in the 60s, and so I already have the mindset and the understanding of history and those things. And so I would say Warren Moon was that person that opened the door or walked me through or to the Canadian Football League because that's the position I wanted to play. And the NFL wanted to change my position because they saw me as a more athletic quarterback, and not necessarily quarterback, but more athletic than the position.
Yeah.
And so that's why I already knew, you know, I knew of the the Conrad Hardways, the J.C. Watts, and all these guys were already in the CFL at the time. And so I wanted to play quarterback, and that was my whole notion.
Now, from all of the time and effort and records that you broke and your MVP nods and everything collectively, that earned you a nomination into the 2012 Canadian Football Hall of Fame. What was it like to get that call and just know that all of your hard work, determination, work ethic, all the early travels, everything combined made it to that one point where you got your name put into that hall?
Well, when I received the phone call, I was already doing things with the commissioner at the time, and so I wasn't expecting that phone call. Because when he got on the phone, I went away, I right away told him, I said, yeah, I'm going to see you at the event tomorrow, right? Or something like that. And he said, no, that's not what I'm calling for. I'm calling for the induction. And the reason why you're always surprised and you're always in shock, because growing up, that's not the thing that we focus on as a young athlete. You know, all we want to do is win championships. And those are the things that we envision. I mean, we never grow up saying, I want to be a Hall of Famer. Like, no one does. And so for me, when you get the call, you're always surprised, even though in a sense, you know, based on your career and what you've done, you have some notion that you have a chance to get in there. But the call is still very surprising and humbling. And so that's the one thing I can really say is it was surprising at the time, and it was humbling too, because that's not something that you actually play for and all those things. But then you understand the dynamic and the importance of being on a team like that, because I think at that time there were only 250 players in the hall.
Gotcha.
You know.
Well, hey, congrats! It's quite an honor to be part of that name in the hall for sure. My last question for you is, in case we have any viewers that want to, or kind of like are looking to build a career in football, starting to get into football, whether they're in high school, college, or anything like that, what's kind of like your messaging that you want to share with the young kids that want to try and build a career and get their name involved in football to some degree?
I think it starts with, at some point in their career or their lives, they have to start thinking about what they want to do in life. What age that may be, I don't know. Some people knew right away what they wanted to do. I knew what I wanted to do at 7 and 8 years old. Some people get it a little bit different, but one is to find the passions in your life, figure out what you want to do in life, and then you let nothing stop you. You into learning, find out all the information that you need to find out about the sport or the profession that you want to get into, and go after it with the tenacity and the joy and the humbleness and the hard work that it takes to make anything happen in life. And every profession we need in life, because we need the people who work really hard, and we need the entertainers and the sportsmen that put a smile on their face. And at the same time, every profession is so important. You know, we need our educators. If you want to be a doctor, we need you to create, heal. You know, all those things, they all play a part in making this earth run as smooth as we're supposed to. And so for me, you know, that's why we always say, you know, the generation, the youth is we got to prepare the youth for the next leaderships on this earth, because they're going to have to look at, and I'm pretty sure they're going to look at earth much different than our forefathers did, probably the way we did, you know, especially with this huge technology, and, you know, how easy technology is for young people. Compared to myself, I'm still learning about technology. But I think there's just, the first and foremost, find the things that make them happy, And if you can make money at doing it, then that might be a profession for you.
Well, hey, that's a great way to, or great words of inspiration for the next generation for sure.
Yes.
And considering that you said you're not really that great with technology, you killed it.
I'm still learning.
No problem. So
I'm still learning. Believe me, I'm still learning. I'm still learning, but it's been a lot of fun. And I think in a sense, you just, continue to be creative no matter what situation that we're in. You got to continue to learn. You got to continue to take care of your body. The body's made of blood, water, and spirit. So there's a spiritual component that we have to look after and be mindful of. And that's what made it easy for me to go through this quarantine, because I think of mind, body, and soul, or mind, body, and spirit. And I work on those three components, or those three categories every day, which makes it unique to work, what I'm going to work on today with my body, or what I'm going to read, or what I'm going to learn today. But I'm always going to spend time with the Most High God as well.
And you know what? That's so important too, because without mental health, there is no physical health.
That's right.
And it's so important to have that equal balance of both, and making sure that, we could eat everything that's healthy and no junk foods or anything, but without a strong mental game as well, then there is no physical game.
No, absolutely. That's why, when we use tripods, and tripod has 3 legs compared to 2, right? So if we're just working on our mind and body, the spiritual component is that 3rd leg that will allow us to stand with if there's a storm coming. So we know that a 2-legged tripod will fall over, but a 3-legged one will manage to stand a little bit more firmer, right? And so that's why we deal with things in 3s, whether it's history, present state, future, right? So
I'm actually going to borrow that one, because I've never heard of that one before, and it's a great,
you can use it.
It's a great one to use, because that just nails the head right down on it with everything as well.
Absolutely, man.
Well, Damon, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. We were really excited to have you on the show, and feel free to reach out anytime, even if you want to just have a chat and
no question. I appreciated the chatting that we've had since I've been doing my, the whole 9 yards with many different people. But, tune in on Thursday. We got an interesting conversation with a player that played 10 years, but also was a referee. And there's interesting information that we're going to share that's kind of unique, and I guess a lot of people don't look at as well. And so I'm looking forward to that conversation.
And so Thursday, and what time is it at?
Thursday, 4:00 Eastern time on at Damon Allan 9, Instagram Live on Thursday.
Great. Well, thank you, Damon, so much for taking the time. And everyone that's watching, make sure to go tune in. Give Damon a follow. You won't be disappointed in the content. And, tune into his lives just like you are with mine. Damon, thanks again.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it, brother.
All right, take care, man.
Bye-bye.